I'm Anil Kumar, and in this video we'll try to understand how to write a transformed trigonometric function given its transformations. Question is, the trigonometric function f of x equals to cos x has undergone the following sets of transformations. Determine the equation of the resulting function and sketch its graph. Transformations are vertical compression by a factor of 0.5, horizontal stretch by a factor of 2, reflection on y-axis, translation of 1 unit up and pi by 4 units right. So in general, a transformed function could be written as y equals to a times, we are taking cosine function, k times x minus p plus q. Right? So that is the general form. Here we know that the vertical compression is by a factor of 0.5. That means a equals to 0.5, or I can write this as half, right? Horizontal stretch by a factor of 2. That means k for us is equals to half. Reflected on y-axis. If it is reflected on y-axis, that means it is horizontally reflected. So k will be minus, right? So reflection will actually make this value 2, k as equals to minus half, incorporating reflection. Do you understand? Yeah. So this is because of reflection on y-axis. Translated 1 unit up, that means q is equals to plus 1, and pi by 4 right, so that means p is plus pi by 4, right? So these are our parameters, and incorporating all these parameters we can write down our equation. So our equation is y equals to a is half, cos of k is minus half because of the reflection on y, right? Minus half. X, p value is pi by 4 minus pi by 4. And q is 1 plus 1, correct? So that is the equation for the transformed function, right? So we have done the first part. Now let us try to sketch this function. So I'll use, so I will use a very general way of sketching it. See, this is kind of unique in a way. So what we have here is, we'll start with translation. 1 unit up, x is, we can say, let me write down the parameters which are of my interest in order so that we will follow those steps and then sketch them, right? So first thing we learn is x is at 1, that is y equals to 1, right? That means this is my axis. Do you see this? I'm just drawing an axis first. Now, what is the maximum value? Maximum value will be amplitude plus axis, which is 0.5. So maximum will be 1.5. So let me draw another dotted line at 1.5. So this is at 1.5, this is at 1. Minimum value will be how much? Will be 1 minus 0.5. So it will be at 0.5. Okay. So 0.5 below 1. Okay, so these are my maximum minimum points. Now cosine function basically starts with a maximum. Now since this is reflected on the y-axis, remember one thing, cosine function is actually even function. So even after reflection, it is going to be exactly same, correct? Cosine functions are even functions. So I can write this as y equals to half cos of, we could write this as half x minus pi by 4 plus 1, since cos is even function, okay? So cos of minus x is cos of x, right? That is what I'm taking advantage of, right? So basically we will have a function which could be drawn as like this. This is cosine function. Do you see that? Oh man, this is not so nice graph. anyway. Now, moving pi by 4 to the right, and the time period for is, now let me also write down the time period so that there is no confusion about it. Since k value is how? It is horizontally stretched by a factor of 2, so that also means that the time period t will be 2 pi by half, which is 4 pi. Do you see? Time period is 4 pi for us. Correct? So the maximum will be 4 pi away from the starting point. Now the starting point has moved pi by 4 units to the right. So the starting point here will be at pi by 4. Do you see that? Okay. And the ending point will be at 4 pi plus pi by 4. This will be at 4 pi plus pi by 4. So that is how your function is going to be, right? Now, to give you a full sketch of this, 0.5, so let's say this is my x-axis, right? And that's my y-axis. I put pi by 4 units to the left of this, correct? So what we normally do is, we first draw the graph of the function without horizontal stretch. So that means, let me draw a light graph here. Like this. Do you see that? First we draw a graph like this, and in this particular graph I can write my, so we have this graph ending here, which is 4 pi, this is 2 pi, this is 0, and this is pi for us, and then we have this point, which is 3 pi. Do you see that? 3 pi. So first stage, and then we translate it pi by 4, in our case how much? Pi by 4 units right. Do you see that? Then you translate each and every point pi by 4 right to get your final function, which I showed you in red. Correct? So that's one way of sketching, I think. So on a graph paper, if you do, it should not be a problem. But that is your basic understanding. So sketch a cosine function. Write down the time period, which is 4 pi in this case. Maximum minimum values calculate using x's and the amplitude. Once you've done that, this is my graph in green. Then translate it pi by 4 units to the right to get your final graph as asked for. So that is how you can sketch it. I hope you understand. Thank you and all the best.